or you hook up Facebook, and then it comes over here. It takes a minute because it has to connect here first.
Oh, I gotta get some water.
Okay. Well, welcome Thursday night to our series on metabolic health and Alzheimer's. We feature stories of care and love and hope. And we feature a story about identical twins. And one was stricken with Alzheimer's and died. And the surviving identical twin, Cheryl, is with us tonight. We'll have some other stories and people coming with us. But for now, we'll talk with Cheryl. And hello, Cheryl. I'll get you over here into the camera. There we go. There you are. It's there. So Cheryl, let's have a conversation about going to the backstory a little bit. Is that we'll go backwards a little bit. When you found out that your sister, how did you find out?
We were at Mayo Clinic. Well, the first thing I found out was my sister and her husband had been up at Mayo Clinic for a whole week. And then her daughter-in-law had a birthday party for her son. And they had just gotten back from Mayo, and my sister was really exhausted that night. And her husband took me to the side and said, they're looking at dementia. And I was shocked. I was so shocked. And so he said, we're going to Mayo next week. Would you like to come with us? And I said, yes. So we met with the doctor. They ran some more tests. And she was pretty upset because it was exhausting, and she knew she didn't do well on the test. And I know she was very upset. And she said that to me too. And she said, I feel stupid. And so we met with the doctor, and he said, we're looking at dementia with the probability of Alzheimer's. And most doctors say that because they can't really say it was true Alzheimer's until after death. If they, look at the brain, which they did with Sharon. Her brain went to Harvard. We got the assessment back, and she truly did have Alzheimer's. She had lots of gray matter in her brain and the plaques and tangles.
How young was she when you?
She was 54 years old.
54.
54.
That's an early onset, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Very early. And I guess that's why I was so shocked. I always thought it was an old person's disease, but it is not.
I mean, like let's look. Yeah, it's metabolic syndrome, but let's kind of look here. Let's just give this a little gander. You guys were pretty kind of cute, weren't you?
Yeah, I guess.
Come on, look at that. Kind of identical. Now, yes. What kind of identical twins are you?
We were mirror twins.
What is mirror twins?
Mirror twins means they have the same genes, but they might have, one might be right-handed, one might be left. And I was always right, but my sister was left. And in those days, if you're left-handed, that was a no-no. So parents switched you on which hand you would use to feed yourself. And that was normal in those days. They don't do that anymore. But we are mirror twins. And
Wait a minute.
What?
You were mirror twins, and they couldn't tell you which one was who. So how did they know who to make the right-handed and who make the left?
Because I used my right and she used her left.
Okay. All right. Just ask.
Jeez, George.
Just ask me.
So anyway, on identical. So let's see. They can be from the same egg or separate. We were from the same egg. I was born first. I was an hour before my sister. My mother did not have a clue she was having twins until I was born, and the doctor said, "There's another one." And she was born an hour after I was. I weighed right at 5 pounds. She weighed under 5 pounds. And that was a lot of baby because my mom was only 4'10" tall, and she was very small boned. And so she said she didn't see her feet for 9 months. The character. So on.
Go ahead.
Oh. So I'm trying to find this.
IQs are close.
Yeah, mirror twins. The physical characteristics on one side of one child's body are reflected on the opposite side of the others. Hair, curl, patterns, freckles, and dental irregularities are opposite. One child is left-handed and the other is right-handed. Occasionally, the position of the organs in one child is reversed in the other. Of course, we didn't know that, if that was so, but I don't know. It's just, we always, in pictures, I would go to the right and Sharon would go to the left. And that had to be because maybe I'm right-handed and she started out left-handed.
Maybe. We'll skip by the 8th grade picture.
Oh, yeah, please. Not my favorite. This was taken at a wedding, my nephew's wedding, her son's. And I was in the white and she was in the black. This was taken, I don't think it was a special occasion or anything. We just, I know. I think they did an article about twins in the newspaper. And that's why we had that taken. But Sharon had a peach and white sweater on. I had a peach and white sweater on, of course. We had the same white slacks, but we found out each other had that same sweater, and we did not know that. Her kids had bought her hers, and my kids had bought me mine. So, and Sharon and I used to buy each other the same birthday cards at different times for our mom, different stories. We didn't know each other, but we sent her the same birthday card. And we often finished each other's sentences. My husband said we mumbled, and I said, well, don't worry about it. We know what we're talking about. We had our own language, and that's normal with twins.
Now, when you guys found out you were at Mayo, right?
Yes.
And what did you do together after that diagnosis?
Well, first thing we did, we had these pictures taken. I've got a whole album. I'm so glad we have them. But Sharon's on the right on that one, and I'm sitting down below her. But we got very involved with the Alzheimer's Association. There was many articles written about us because of the early onset, and we were just different because we were twins. Went to Washington, D.C. The Alzheimer's Association wanted me and Sharon to go to Washington, D.C. to the convention, and where I gave a speech. Can you see that?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. And she was right beside me. There was over 300 people at that convention. And when I started writing that speech, I had speech class in high school, and I hated every bit of it because I was very introverted, for one thing. My kids don't believe that now, but I was. And so when I started writing that speech, it just flowed out of me. It wasn't hard to get up. I was not one bit nervous when I got up there to talk about it. And Sharon sat right beside me. but we were asking basically I was asking for funding for Alzheimer's. And then after that speech, everybody see that one? Went to some of the representatives' office at the Capitol, Dennis Hassert and Richard Durbin. And Hassert didn't impress me. He almost acted like, oh God, here we go. And he did not say hardly 2 words when I was talking to him. And I said, Alzheimer's need more funding. I said, we need to find a cure, but he didn't really say anything. And I kind of left there disappointed, but we tried. But our guide, the lady that was our guide that day, she was very, very nice. She said, I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm going to take you up to the top of the Capitol building so you can look out over the city. She said, we're not supposed to do that, but I'm going to. So that was nice of her. But it was an exhausting trip because at that time, Sharon needed help picking out clothes. I had went and bought her a bunch of clothes, or her husband bought them. He paid the bill. She and I picked them out. Anyway, but it was exhausting because I had to deal with the luggage all by myself. She could not help. And I had to make sure she was at my side all the time. So it was pretty exhausting. I know she was really tired when we got back. It was a quick trip. I think it was 3 days altogether. But yeah, but I'm glad we did.
So. Perfect. All right. So we've got, we're looking at, we've got now Jennifer's joined us, and we got Andriana has joined us. So wonderful good seeing you girls too. And so we've talked a little about this. And the one thing at this point in time, I want to make sure everybody understands is that Alzheimer's is a condition that you can actually eat yourself into. It is now considered type 3 diabetes. And so it is a condition that we can eat ourselves into. And it is not, you're not guaranteed just because of a genetic disposition. You could have the genes, but it doesn't mean, in fact, that you are guaranteed to become diabetic. Or not diabetic, but insulin. I got insulin on my head tonight, guys. I'm so sorry. You're not guaranteed that you will have diabetes type 3, which is Alzheimer's. But you can eat your way into it, and you could also eat your way out of it. And so we have research on that, especially using more of the Mediterranean diet and things. We'll talk about that in a little bit too. So Jennifer, you have grandmother, and then Andriana, you have grandmother story too, don't you both? So let's one or the other go ahead and pick up there.
Hello.
I'll let you go and rock it.
That's all right. Yeah, like we have 2. My grandmother, she has passed away, but she had it for 10 years. And at the time, I was having, my children. So I wasn't really aware of aware, with things that go out behind the scene as you're trying to understand the medical side of it, until now that I've dug into insulin resistance a little bit more due to my husband and my father having been type 2 diabetic, and seeing how much sugar and insulin in your body really causes havoc. And it causes havoc also on the brain because the ketones are not being produced there. Our body kind of shuts down. It kind of gets eaten away or rotten away. So when I try to go back and rethink with grandma, I know that when she lost grandpa, it was very hard. She wanted to kind of isolated herself, stuck by herself. She did go out to the restaurant in the mornings to meet up with everybody like they did in town. It was a small town. But she would drink her coffee. They usually drink it black, but there's like the cinnamon rolls that you start off your morning with, and so you spike your blood sugar, right?
Those, just so people know, those are Wisconsin or North Dakota cinnamon rolls.
This is Illinois.
Illinois. Okay, so they're not
Yeah.
Wisconsin or North
No,
Dakota. Yeah, okay, all right.
she's the Illinois one. Yeah.
All right,
So that's
all
my
right.
dad's side.
They're small. Just so everybody knows, they're smaller relative by the state. The further north you go, the larger
The bigger they get.
and the bigger the frosting too. By the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. So for her, I think not being around people, and she probably snacked a lot just to keep herself busy throughout the day. Just was part of it. Also, I don't think most people, if you do have to pop a pill or even supplements, they're sugar coated. So it breaks your fast and starts that as well as you're starting to research and do a understanding of how this is all affecting people. For my aunt, it's not even the same side. It's my mom's side. My grandma was my dad's side. So my aunt, who we're taking care of now, she was a nurse practitioner. All that knowledge and studying is gone, just gone. And she was popping pills, but she was also drinking Diet Mountain Dew. Like, any word with diet in it doesn't mean there's no sugar in it. It's just hidden sugar. And your body still spikes the blood sugar when you're drinking that. So for her, she would think she was drinking between 6 and 12 a day, we figured out, of the 16 to 20 ounce bottles. So, like, her body was inundated with sugar. And we also knew that too, because with going to the doctor, they wanted to put her on metformin because she was pre-diabetic. So unfortunately, she got sick on that. So we were able to change her diet and bring those levels down. So, but unfortunately, the amount of sugar and things that have been accumulating over time have caused the brain and the ketones to advance her symptoms to type 3 diabetes. So yeah, it's hard to see and watch your loved ones go through it. It's hard to watch my mom have to take care of her sister and before her mother-in-law. It's hard on everyone just in general. So it's also for your loved ones who are suffering with it, but then as you're having to help as well. So it's kind of a twofold, unfortunately.
Does your mother have any concern at all?
I, she probably doesn't, but I know at times for myself listening to her, I don't know if it's just stress at times, but I think she does. As I've started her on the protocol to get things functioning again. We were noticing it with my dad because my brother had mentioned it due to, he's been a type 2 diabetic for 20 years. So my brother was noticing things because my dad still works at the age of 70 in concrete. So my brother was starting to notice it. But now I guess he's back to being super chatty catty. Before he was pretty quiet. So I think things are functioning again too for him with getting them both on the protocol and to get those ketones going, to get that brain mental clarity back for sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Jennifer, what's happening in your world? Well, first off, we had Grandma Helen, right?
Yes. Isn't she a beautiful lady?
Yes, indeed.
So, yes, my grandmother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. My grandma was, as there's different forms and different behaviors that come from each person that has Alzheimer's. Like you were saying with your grandmother, my grandma loved to cook. My grandma was the best at making Mexican wedding cakes, tins of cookies, big meals. There was no such thing as food order. You always had to have a bread to start your meal with your salad.
Wait a minute. By the way, for those of you that watching, Jennifer said food order. She doesn't mean ordering out.
No. The order in which you consume your fiber, your fats, your proteins, your carbs. I was brought up in a family where, starting with carbs was a good idea. Of course, now that I'm learning like about insulin resistance and food order, not food ordering, Starting with my fiber first is more beneficial. Grandma, throughout her stages of Alzheimer's, started wandering the neighborhood, putting random items in a paper bag. It wasn't, she lived with my grandfather who had multiple health issues as well. When she had fallen and broken her hip, that was when they had moved her into a skilled facility. Grandma also dealt with a lot of migraines, which is a miserable thing all in itself. And then you add confusion. I became her daughter. My dad became her husband. And when you were speaking, I was thinking about, you were saying your grandmother went to restaurants to have her morning coffee. It made me think back to my grandfather when my grandmother was moved into a facility, and he was obviously beside himself because he was alone at home. But in order to get to where she was, he would have to drive. Well, because he was ailing in health, and my aunt had asked, how did you get there? And he said, I was counting stop signs. I know how many stop signs to get there and how many stop signs to come back. And, as I progressed in getting to know more about Alzheimer's and what it was like for my grandmother and for my mother and my aunt and uncle, such a painful thing to listen to. Grandma went from sweet little tiny loving woman to thinking my uncle was a terrorist trying to push a 6-foot man out of the window. If like I always say, if I would have known then what I know now, I think things would have been a whole lot different for her. It wouldn't have been such a miserable experience. And when my grandfather had passed before she did, and she wasn't in a place due to the extent of her Alzheimer's. It was not something that we brought to her attention, because in her mind, my father was her husband. So to her, her husband was alive. It's such a wicked disease, you guys. I can't even. I look at her picture all the time. I am doing a walk to end Alzheimer's in Boca Raton, Florida in November, just to let my grandmother know that I'm still honoring her, and I am doing things to help myself to combat my own insulin resistance, and being a caregiver. My mother has mild cognitive decline. My father, his physician had given him 2 Alzheimer's medications, and he's getting tested the end of October, which is exciting for me, not so exciting for him. It's not something he really wants to do, but him having the caregiving role prior to me coming here to live with them, he still claims himself as a caregiver, and he does do many things for her because that's his spouse. So I took a different role this week, because there's a lot of resistance about from family members, also from the parents. So I decided this week that Dad would be in charge of giving Mom her daily 13 eye drops, and he's finding that it's a bit frustrating. It's Mom is coming more to light into the situation, and I'm not doing it to be mean. I'm not doing it to make it uncomfortable for anybody. But when they repetitively tell me, we will be okay if you're not here, I want somebody to understand, mainly my mother, that you are not okay living alone. That's this week's challenge.
Now, I know that Mom's started on at least the tea, right? A part of a tea, or?
Yes, we're almost up to 2 packets of the tea. She's been dealing with some other chronic pain due to a knee surgery and a femur break. We're thinking the hardware is possibly pushing on a nerve. So there's constant pain, especially in the evenings, which also triggers, she's got some other issues happening that did require some medication to get rid of some of the issues. But overall, she's, she diligently, when dad's eating breakfast, she goes to the table, she starts sipping her tea. She doesn't eat until lunch. And at first she was a little leery, but she's on board. We're working our way up because she does have a lot of different issues going on, and her doctor asked her to take it slow.
Now, she had migraines all the time, didn't she, or something?
Yes. We've been having more this week. It's a side effect of the medication that she's taking for a UTI.
Okay.
It's a pretty potent one for UTI. So to get somebody to drink more water when they already frequent the facilities often is a little bit of a challenge, because they don't, they still want to be able to maybe go to the store or to feel good enough to go get their hair done, because that is a weekly ritual. And then water is not involved. I don't want to have to go to the facilities when I'm out,
That is a war. I know. I'm very familiar with that one. Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to travel because I'll have to stop and go to the bathroom, and I don't want to stop the trip. I want to take the trip. I want to be there, but I don't want to ride in the car for that long because we'll have to stop. And with my mom, we were raised in South Dakota. So, I mean, it's an hour anyway, no matter where you're going. We never measure time, and we never measure distances in miles. It's hour and a half, 2 hours. It's that kind of thing, And we're actually traveling miles. Well, you guys travel that amount of time, you go 9 blocks? So we would get in the car and we would go and we would travel 2, 3, 4 hours or whatever with a car full of kids and the small bladders, but we never, stopping was not an option until it was time to get gas. Then the poor gas station would be overrun by all these Filipinos and some of our fair-haired, blonde, white kids running around with us in the intermingling, and the bathrooms of all these little like Mobile and Standard and 66 and Skelly stations. And then there would be no maps left on the rack. Every map was gone because we were all navigators, and we took more variations of crossroads to get across this great state. But back to the riddle story. Bathroom breaks were not, okay, we'll stop at a tree. No, we were going to this facility. And so Mom is that same way. We travel until we go. And she doesn't want to interrupt that flow. That's part of her travel memory. Yeah.
Yeah. But she was incontinent.
Yeah, and then becomes incontinent. That's a whole nother animal. But yeah, so that's how that plays out. Henrietta, you're not able to, your aunt's not, she's not able to, any protocol or anything else. She's like my mom. We're on the other side of
I think we're gonna just at least put a tea in her fridge to see if she'll drink it.
Yeah.
Just to help with some insulin resistance. It's not. Yeah. I mean, you never know. The body is able to adapt to a degree and can be amazing and provide miracles a lot of times. So we've discussed adding in to see if she'll drink the tea. I haven't talked to my mom yet since we discussed kind of talking about that when we brought it up on Sunday with Jen giving it to her mom. But yeah.
Yeah, like we've got like Dr. Midge Brown, who is an endocrinologist. Her father had type 2 diabetes and Alzheimer's. And the food is his thing. And so they decided not to have him fast at all, but they got him on at least the tea protocol. And he's reversed his type 2 diabetes Not that it, it's not going to reverse any of the Alzheimer's, but it does. Everybody listening, the one thing about Alzheimer's, and more research is coming out, is that improvements in just 20 weeks, including decreasing the risk of progression and reversing some of the memory altering impacts. Another study that came out, they talked about the Mediterranean diet and olive oil. But the wonderful thing about it, and there was 420 people with 2 copies of the APOE4 gene. So in other words, that's the variant that is described to create Alzheimer's. But that doesn't mean that you're going to have it. It means you have a propensity to. And so you can mitigate it. You can improve it with lifestyle and diet. And one of the things that I think that sings loudly in the recent research, it's not whether in a Mediterranean diet you should have chickpeas or this thing or that thing. It's the elimination of 80% of the grocery store. It's all the stuff that's not included in the good behavioral changes. It's so if you're listening, one of the things we would all recommend is that when you shop, in fact, you could even start now, go to your pantries. And if you find anything that has 4 groups of ingredients, and the 4 groups would include any kind of starch, especially maltodextrin, any
or
kind
modified cornstarch, yeah.
Yes, modified cornstarch. And see, maltodextrin can be made out of potato. It can be made out of rice. It can be made out of wheat. It can be made out of corn. And in that, it doesn't say whether it's always going to be GMO'd. And it can be made out of other kinds of plant fibers to make maltodextrin. And that literally will spike your blood sugar almost twice to a third more than table sugar. So maltodextrin is immediately a no. Starches are a no. So that's one whole group. Then you have sugar, and there's about 260 names for sugar, and most of them don't taste sweet. And then you look at salt, and that's just going to be straight sodium chloride, nothing really cool with minerals. So everybody can pass breed up and white. But then you're going to have seed oils. Now, guys, seed oils will be cottonseed oil, rapeseed oil, canola oil, corn oil, soybean
Vegetable
oil. That's whatever the heck. I've never seen vegetables grown. I see different kinds of vegetables. What's a vegetable oil? What are they squeezing? I don't know. I have a vegetable. Well, you have a carrot. Anyway. So vegetable. In other words, they have absolutely waste products that came from vegetables that they squeeze the crap out of, and hey, we got oil. So those things, and more research is showing that those stay in your cells for months. They have a half-life. They're not just gluten pooping, they're gluten sticking. And if they get in the cell, they're not coming out happily and freely. And so those are things you want to not have in your pantry. You don't want them in your grocery cart again. And you certainly don't need a whole aisle of sugar. Sugary drink juice. What's juice? Sugar water. Soda, sugar water. Cereal, sugar water. Bread, sugar water. Did you know that the way of subs, bread, we call it bread here, but in Europe, they call it sugar. It's taxed as sugar. It's not even taxed as bread. Think about that one for half a second. And so when you start looking to shop, considering more and more research about lifestyle and diet, look to eliminate those 4 processed. And then a lot of every food's processed, right? Unless it's a whole food, it's been processed. But there's ultra processed, there's hyper processed, there's hyper palatably processed. Then you've got GMO'd, and they got bioengineered, and you have bioengineered ingredients. No.
And by the way, I cleaned out my freezer tonight.
Yes, you did.
And there was 2 tarts. George and I used like these little frozen tarts, about that big. We split it.
They were yummy.
So
And
and you
addictive.
just bake them. There was an apple one, or there was a blueberry and a cherry or something like that in there. Guess where they went? In the garbage. Well, you know, until he got on this, until he found out his diabetes was blowing up.
No
Anyway,
wonder it was 834.
I know.
It's just like we did one.
So when we first got together, he lives here in Ann Peoria, okay. And so I'd either go down there or he'd come up here on the weekends, like on Sunday afternoon. So he always wanted dessert. So I'd have something, and it's like, oh my God, if I lived with him, I'd be fat as a pig. But we don't do that anymore.
No, really don't. Not that it wouldn't taste good,
Yeah.
but
Well, there's, you know,
we can have a little. Yeah.
you can have a little.
Yeah,
But that's
we
the
can.
nice thing with the fiber.
Yep.
It doesn't allow your blood sugar to spike, so you can still treat yourself at times. So you don't feel like you're giving up something, especially because it's out there. Like,
Yep. Yeah.
Every time I go to the grocery store, he says, "Did you bring me back a candy bar?" And I said, "No, I didn't."
And she doesn't. So yeah, that's good. But so yeah, I mean, the great thing about the protocol, 100%, is like even with our best friend, everybody's best friend in here on the group. You know, when he was up here about a month ago, and we went out to dinner a couple times, and we had at least one bounce, if not 2 bounces ahead of the meal. And one of my favorite places is in Peoria, and they do the best it's a wood fire grill. I mean, a wood fire pizza place, you know, where it's hotter than heck in there, and the wheels turn around, and oh my goodness. But they make the best wood fired dry rubbed wings. And we both had a pizza. Now, used to be a pizza was for me, and some of hers was for me. And now when we had pizza, I had maybe half of mine, and that was all I ate. I didn't eat all the wings. You know, it's like the fiber helps fill you up, which is great. And so then you just don't eat as much. And so we have more leftovers. I'm doing a cooking show on a Kickstart cooking show 3 days a week. And I'm going to cook tomorrow, but I really wouldn't necessarily have to cook tomorrow, but I'm going to assemble. We're going to do portabella, languisto, clam, or not clam, but crab. Yeah, languisto crab stuffed portabellas that I'm going to put them together. We'll grill them tomorrow night. So we still eat well, but either the order of food getting towards, you know, the mushroom is what? Fiber. And the cream cheese will be fat. And then the protein is the languistos and the crab. So even there, we're putting the order of food together.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how that plays out.
Actually, he fixed a roast the other night. We had fajitas. We had
Tacos the first night.
Tacos the first night. And then taco salad. It was taco salad.
Yeah.
And then we ate fajitas.
And Italian beef.
And there's still some left.
God. A small chuck roast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then we had, and burgers and what else? I've still got the leftovers. So yeah, eating is good. You can eat very, very well and not be restrictive is really the lesson to be had here. I mean, look at these two.
You still have to fuel yourself. Otherwise, you're going to have zero gas in the tank, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it looks like she's what? You're about done, 16, 18 now?
For my
Maybe
age, yes.
22?
You definitely are
back in
aging
years,
in reverse.
I hit 49, and we're going backwards now, right?
Yeah, exactly. Both of you. Yeah, both of you. And Jennifer looks just more happy and positive, and she's glowing, isn't she? I mean, since we met her in Miami. We met her in Miami, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she's changed. greatly since then, and it's awesome. We love it. So
Well, thank you for noticing.
Yeah.
You know, my mother said that my mood has drastically improved. Always good to hear that from your mom, even though you thought you were doing well before.
Right.
So I want to go to on the care side of the world. So Deanna or Andrea my names are just flopping up.
You know too many of us, huh?
I know, really. It's just like,
You know who I am?
hey, you guys. Oh, you guys should have seen it earlier. I all of a sudden I was inspired. I became a castanet calypso dancer. I
You were
have no
serenading
idea
her
what-
with your dance.
I just like, I was like,
Love
I don't know. Anyhow, so talk about care. How are we handling it? What are you doing for care? I know I'll talk about my mom, but what are you talking? How are you doing care with your aunt? What's going on with that?
She lives in the same town my mom does, so she goes over and takes care of her, and I go in and clean the place and kind of take that off my mom, or I go and provide food just and have conversation with her as best I can, because it does wear on my mom when she has to do that every day and listen to someone that makes up stuff when she talks, and then of course my mom likes to correct that, and it's like, just let her talk. But I think it's hard for my mom just because she's the younger sister, like my aunt's the oldest. So either there's probably tension, like any sibling, right? Like, to have to do that. But this is her last person. Like, her parents are both gone. Her brother went missing. So this is her last living sibling. So it's hard to watch and have to take care of. And then, I mean, it's kind of like a toddler because they don't always listen, and you can't really scold them because then they get irritated because they're frustrated as well, right? They're just not understanding what's going on or want to go out and do stuff, but it's hard, to make sure she doesn't, because we used to have my grandma who would wander in town because for whatever reason she thought she was going backwards in age, so she'd go out and think she had to collect rent from people in town because they had renters, right? So she would go knock on the door and collect rent, thinking it was back years ago. So there was a point where we had to unfortunately put her into an assisted living due to her wandering. And luckily for us, we're in a small town that someone called someone and said, hey, Grandma Frances is out again, just to let you know. So yeah, so there's all different levels. I know probably there will be a point that we'll have to put her into an assisted living just because our lives are busy too. Or the fact that she's probably, they do get ornery, unfortunately. So I think it'll probably have to come to a head, unfortunately. But yeah,
And
it's a lot.
With your sister, eventually she had to go into care, right?
Yeah, she did. She started getting very angry.
Yeah.
And it was funny. She lived the last year of her life in a nursing home, and she would walk up to the mirror. I remember the first time I went in there after she was put in there, they told us to wait like a week for her to settle in. And when she and her daughter, my niece, went there the first time, she stood there. She was looking, it's a locked unit because they have a regular Alzheimer's.
Right.
And she was looking through the door, and she was standing up and looking towards the door, and we looked in there, and she was just shaking. She was scared to death because it was unfamiliar. But she eventually settled in, but she didn't, for a long time, didn't know what was going on anyway. But she would go up to the mirror. The first time I went there, she went up to the mirror and she'd just start crying. And I'm thinking there's still enough cognitive in there. And she's looking at herself and thinking, I shouldn't look like this, because her whole appearance changed. We did not look like twins when towards the end there, of course, she'd gained a lot of weight. She would go in there and steal everybody's cookies off the table.
That was my grandma too in the nursing home.
Yeah.
Like, she ballooned up. Yeah. She became heavy. Yeah.
And she did not look like herself. And even through the face and everything. And we couldn't do her hair except just have it cut. And then we used to turn, I would usually be in there when the beautician came to cut her hair. And I told them, turn her around so she's not looking in the mirror at herself. And she did, and that worked. But honest to God, after my sister died, and I was looking in the room after she died, I stayed around or with her around the clock, me and her daughter, and I knew she was going to die on Saturday, which she did. I slept in the bed with her all that time, and I looked in there. My daughter came to the nursing home, and I was standing out in the hall talking to her and my brother-in-law and her daughter and my sister's daughter. And I looked in there at the room, and she was laying on her back. It's after she'd passed. And she had a glow about her. I mean, it was just like she was glowing. And I thought she went with God. I know that. And when she wasn't cremated, she's laying in her casket, her whole appearance changed. She was my sister again. I couldn't believe the difference. I said, oh my God, I have my sister back. She looked like me. She looked like she always did. It was just amazing, the transformation. So.
And so, and when for those listening, is that when there's a transition of location, which is a change of pattern, there's a thing called sundown. We call it sundown, and there are people's whole behaviors. They become entirely different people. Like our mom went to the hospital one time, and this nice lady was throwing stuff at the nurses, and I mean, she was violent. I mean, it took my brother and I, a little bit of muscle to slow her down, and it went on for about 12 hours. We didn't know if we were going to be able to even keep her in the hospital because the staff can't handle that kind of behavior. They're not prepared to be in a regular hospital bed for that type of thing. But that can be a severe thing. So be aware that change of environment, slow or rapid, can create what we call the sundown effect. And that can become a very violent and almost uncontrollable event. So be aware of that as well. And when we talking about the whole idea of going into facilities, there's different kinds of facilities. But I will tell you that if you have a loved one that's going into a facility, and healthcare people will argue with me on this statement, but the people that get the best care are the ones that have the most visitors because they know that you're coming around. They know some family member is going to be there every day or at least every other day, as opposed to someone that might maybe show up for Christmas or Thanksgiving, maybe. This is not a time of abandonment. This is a time of care and love. And so we want to make sure that we bring that to the forefront, because these three lovely ladies have all been and given care, trained or not trained, but they've learned to give care. And women naturally do that. Guys were kind of, I don't know, what did Mindy Peltz say? Guys are like a barbershop quartet, and girls are like a symphony orchestra. You guys are complex in ways that we can't even pretend to imagine. Yeah, just call us when we need to get a haircut, kind of thing. But the whole thing is on care. Care is sharing. Care is being patient, and it's about being present. And so a lot of times people think when they have to care, they have to do something. Being present counts. Just being there counts. Listening counts. That presence can make all the difference in their day. And it'll make a difference in your day. But it's about them. It's not about you. I was with Mom this last weekend, and I got to do the things you do when you're a 24-hour caregiver and the person's in bed. There are things that you do that have to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the oldest son, and those things were done to me and for me when I was way back when. Now I'm doing them for her, and you just do. But this is for me, it's the girl that I sing happy birthday to. I sing happy birthing day to my mother every year. Happy birthday day to you, and I've got 73 of them in, I better get, 74, and so but you never know. I know we don't know the day or the hour, but it is amazing the amount of energy that it takes just to be present. Mm-hmm. And Jennifer, you get this gold star and the award and the participation trophy and the blue ribbon to take home because you're a 24/7 presence. I know you do get out once in a while, but you're there in the residence all the time. And that is a toll on mental, mm-hmm. spiritual, emotional, even physical. Now you're letting Dad put the drops in, and you're letting them try to figure out, well, maybe we should give that back. That's not that. We'll let Jennifer do that. That's not bossy. That makes it good. And Mom's going to go, good. He's not hitting my cheeks. At least it's getting closer to my eyeball. That type of thing.
Well, and I will speak on your sundowning, because when I've been here about 2 years, and I had noticed that with my father, he would get frustrated or a little more confused in the moment. Anytime after noon. Mornings are the best time to have the important conversations, and trying to, I tried different things. And it took me a little while to realize that that's what was happening. But I also noticed as we get into dinner or even after dinner that I have learned that when he gets frustrated or confused, because he's not very vocal with those types of things. He keeps everything to himself. He'll tell you he's fine. But they say that when people that have Alzheimer's or dementia, when they get confused, they hum. So I've noticed that as I've been here in the progression of things, that when he is very frustrated, he hums. And that is a way that your body is trying to calm you in order to refocus yourself.
Has to do with the vagus nerve, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's definitely been something that has become more frequent as of late, since I have asked him to take over doing the eye drops for Mom. Because it's a high stress moment. It's after 12. It's, he would rather lay on, sit on the couch, watch TV, watch the news. Oh my gosh, I have to get up again. And I said, yes, it is something that takes effort all day long. If she needs medication, my mom has to come to me, because that was something her doctor said I needed to do. So if I was to introduce anything at this point other than this is your job now, it would just make the situation a whole lot worse. And the humming would become.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Andrea's joined us. Andrea, good evening.
Hello.
Welcome to the conversation. Give us a little. What is some of your story? I know, but nobody else does. So what's some of the story that you've experienced?
Well, we cared for my husband's family members in our home for 3 years. Went through the hospice, having hospice in our home, and thank God for, organizations like that, because that was a huge help. But we saw the drastic decline of, just mentally, physically, the whole 9 yards, and what it does to your family member. It's very tough. It's tough for them also to be able to accept the help that they need. And then it's tough for the caregivers also. I think both ways it's a struggle. I know I was so thankful with my mother-in-law. And she actually fell one night and developed a brain injury, and it was horrible. And we didn't know for sure what was going on. She wouldn't let us take her to the emergency room. She cut her eye just a little bit, nothing major, but I finally got her to the emergency room after like 48 hours. And I just said, you don't have a choice. We've got to go figure out, because she was up walking. And it's amazing when she couldn't walk before. I mean, literally, she could not hardly get up. And when she fell and hit her head, I couldn't stop her. There can just be a lot, and then forgetting, just, yeah. So, and it's tough. It's tough for everybody. And I know with another family member, we were headed down that path. And this has been several years ago. Well, actually, my dad. And we were able to bring in some major nutrition, and it turned the corner for him. So if you can catch it early enough. So start now. Those things that we are doing now for our health, it matters down the pike. But I could tell when he didn't have omegas, was one of them. When he didn't have the omegas, he couldn't connect the dots. And within the 24 to 48 hour period, because our body functions off food. Food can be our best form of medicine or our worst form of poison. And so that's something that we need to think about as we're thinking about caring for others. And
so you had two family members, Jim's parents, living with you for 3 years.
We had 3, yeah. Actually, his Down syndrome uncle too, yeah.
Wow, that's enough caregiving, don't you think, guys? Now, did you get any training for that, or is that you were just a mom that became a caregiver?
I was just a mom that became a caregiver. Actually, it had started with my grandmother back, gosh. Oh, how many years ago was that? Let me think. Probably 20 years ago. She had gone into some Alzheimer's, and she lived with us. Then my kids were young. She lived with us for 3 months, and we got her well enough to where she could go back to her home to be able to go in, because she wanted to be at home because of her roses. She loved her flowers. So we were able to work that out to where we could start having people come into the home at that point. More family was around, and then it just, you know what, guys, it's so important that we do now what we can to protect ourselves. Because with my husband's family, his dad had COPD, so that was a struggle. And then his mom fell and broke her hip. And once that happened, that just led everything, down this path. That changed everybody's world. And, yeah. So for about 3 years, I was unable to, I worked very little. And thank God I could do that, but it took me out of, a career path. And, it was during the time of COVID. So my husband was working from home, but it was hard. And then you need help, and you need to think of finances. You need to think of all of it, because it all matters. And those are some hard conversations to have when you start thinking about, I know my husband, when all this was going on, it brings a lot of stress. And I have a dear friend who's a naturopath, and she was concerned, and I was concerned, rightfully so. And in the midst of all of this, my husband has a massive widowmaker heart attack. You know, we're caring for 3 family members, and he had just turned our 3-bedroom handicap home into a 3-bedroom or 3-bedroom car garage into a 3-bedroom handicap home in 2 months. That all adds stress on people, and people don't think about all that, you know, and stress matters.
Yep.
But a lot of times the caregivers can pass away before those that are even being cared for. And it's a statistic. So
yeah. I used to say when I in financial practice, I used to say that the people that had Alzheimer's would live longer than the caregivers because the caregivers have all the stress.
yeah, you do.
I mean, you know, mentally they have the stress. And Dr. Andrea, with the question I had with your aunt,
Mm-hmm.
it was the onset before or get enhanced, if you will, by the isolation period that we went through a few years ago?
No, because her son was living there with her during that time. But with that, she was still drinking a lot of Diet Mountain Dew.
Okay.
So I think hers had to do more with her diet. With being a nurse practitioner, I don't think she probably ate the best. It was all like grab and go processed and the Diet Mountain Dews. So which is weird because she's the one that used to cook with my mom and grandma, like our family dinners or the meals for Thanksgiving and whatnot. So it's not like she didn't know how to cook. She was one of the, people that did that back growing up. But I think just with her, being at the hospital or with working or all of her, things she did for studying, it just became easier for herself just to heat something up in a TV tray or, all the processed stuff. So.
And your sister was a good cook, wasn't she?
Oh, very good cook. Very good.
She wasn't eating out.
No.
So it wasn't diet per se.
No.
And it wasn't diet. It wasn't genetic. So it has to go to a hormonal level where we're dealing with cortisol, with stress.
And she had a lot of stress at different times in her life.
But you have to see too, like our food system has totally changed since then.
Yeah.
Like a lot of us don't. I mean, there's times where I'm bad because my husband does most of the cooking. I do the baking, which is not good either. But that's what I was taught from, with my grandma to bake.
Yeah.
Because you're a scientist. See, I cook. Recipes are suggestions.
Yes.
Bakers, you gotta measure this and count that.
Yes, it has to be precise.
I used to bake a lot, but I quit a long time ago. Well, when
I would prefer baking over going and buying the processed stuff in the store.
Yeah,
There's always a better choice, but now that I have this fiber stuff, I don't feel as bad.
Yeah, got it.
Well, when we were kids, we grew up meat, potatoes, vegetable.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have processed foods.
We didn't snack either.
No, we didn't either.
You'll ruin your dinner.
Yeah. Well, or if you didn't eat dinner, you waited till the next day.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And when you guys all have potatoes, I'm sure you all had potatoes. We had 100-pound bag of rice in the bin. And as quick as you were tall enough to take the Revere pan and put it into the rivet, you knew how much rice went in. You knew how much water went in. You put the lid, and you're done. You knew how to make as quick as you could do that exercise. You learned how to make rice, and we had rice at least twice a day. And so starches were different back then, as it were. Really, really. But oh my gosh. Well, you guys, I appreciate your time. I know that we're touching some people. We're getting some information out there that are making people more aware that it's not a thing that you have to run away from. It's not a thing to hide from, but it's a thing to talk about. And it's a community, because it's not just if someone holds it all inside and doesn't let anybody discuss it, it's going to tear you apart. Now, it's hard to get out. I won't argue that. I mean, it's just to talk about it is painful, but it's about letting other people understand the stories, the legacy, and what can be done on the going forward, on what can we do and how did we get there. And so we have all kinds of different stories here. And now the one thing that we all are doing is we all have found each other, but we found each other through this crazy thing called the protocol. Right? Just a couple teas and a fiber drink. I mean, couple drink. What's silliness? What? Because it works. Mm-hmm. It works. Everybody is, and this one over here, most people talk about it's weight loss, right? It's about weight loss. She's 94 pounds. Depends on whose scale. If it's on my scale, she's 92. She goes on hers, she's 94. She likes hers. She actually likes her scale better than mine.
No, I like yours.
Today she likes my scale. Okay, great. But it's not about weight loss, right? For her, it's not about weight loss. I mean, for her, it's about what? Maintaining a healthy style, maintaining a healthy life, maintaining and preventing. But what is one of the things that happened that we never would have thought to have happened?
Okay, I had a hysterectomy in 2016. It was just preventative. I didn't have cancer or anything, and I had no history of cancer, but it was done as preventative, and I agreed to that. So, because my Pabst test had not been turning out good. So 2016, and I had to have a Pabst test every 6 months. I thought after I had a hysterectomy, I thought, oh, good, I'm done with all this.
She did. She thought, yahoo, I'm out of here, dude. And by the way, when she had her hysterectomy was like our 5th date, just so you know. And serious.
Oh, Facebook, yeah.
Yes, right? So I'm at the hospital with her, right? And they're talking about this boot and this, that, and the other. And she's like, no. And she gets up and she's running around the hall with her little thing.
No.
You are too. You're running loud.
No, where are they putting you?
Oh, the catheter.
Catheter.
Yeah.
Okay, when I came to from surgery, oh my God, is that a catheter? And they said, yeah. I said, I want it out. And they said, and when they took me back to my room, the nurse said, when you can get up and walk the hall, we'll take it out. So I think 2 hours later, I said,
if that,
get me out of this bed.
She's up with her post and running around the hallway. Like people like.
The nurse looked at me and thought, oh my God, I can't believe it. I said, get it out.
But then 9 months later.
So I had to have a Pabst test every 6 months until, the last one I had was a couple months ago, because they just don't turn out like they should. So they keep wanting to do them. And I had a procedure once during all that, but that still didn't do much, even after the hysterectomy. And so this last one I had, and they called me and they said, your Pabst test is normal. And it was after I started on the protocol. I'd been on there since
90 days. Yeah.
90 days. Yeah.
About 90 days. So 9 years of abnormal, 90 days protocol. Pretty awesome.
So I have one in about another 3 months, and we'll see. But yeah.
So there's just one more positive thing about this protocol. And getting to know everybody and meet everybody, it's an awesome group that we have. We have a wonderful community. We meet daily, 5 days a week anyway, and all voluntarily. And we share and love and hug. And today was a very emotional day. It was a very emotional morning. And I've had a very emotional night. So I've had a tiring day. I don't know about the rest of you. But it's a very positive thing. And so that's what we want to share with everybody, that there is hope. There's care and there's love and there's hope. and we're blessed to be able to share our lives and our stories with you in the hope that we can touch yours. And so thank you very much. Anything you want to say before you say goodnight? John Boy, as it were.
Here's my name.
Oh, sorry.
Uh-oh, we got to get Cheryl up
I'm in
here.
trouble. She's sharing my box. Come on.
Thank you guys for being a voice
Yeah.
for people that don't have a voice, all of you, because there are people that are going to hear this that just they need some hope. They need to know that somebody else is walking through this, that they're not alone.
Right.
And they're not. And we don't have all the answers, but
No.
we're here to lock arms with you to say, hey,
Right.
we'll help you however we can. So
I don't
that's
know if anybody knows what they call this disease. They call it the long goodbye. Basically, that's what they call it, the long goodbye. So,
To provide yourself some grace, because every day is different.
yeah, it is. It is.
And be patient with yourself, because I went in full bore. And now I'm starting to realize I don't have to be so stern. I don't have to be so hard on myself for things not coming out the way I hoped. That every day you kind of ebb and flow with where your loved one's at.
Right.
Like
Yep.
your body, you have to be able to adapt to keep that stress level down.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
See you.
See you
Bye,
soon.
guys.
All right.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.